Hello, friends. Welcome to Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is AI literacy in logistics with Gather AI's Andrew Hoffman. How's it going, Andrew?
Oh, great. A little chilly here today in Colorado, but enjoying the changing weather.
That time is coming. That time is coming. Andrew, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Sure. My name is Andrew Hoffman. I'm the CTO at Gather AI. And Gather AI, I like to say that we take people's warehouses and we digitize them, either using drones or forklift-mounted cameras, material handling equipment-mounted cameras. And what we do is we compare that against your warehouse management system, your enterprise resource planning system, and we help you boost your accuracy with all that real-time computer vision, all our cameras looking at everything, and help you make better decisions with the data that you have.
Yes. When we were prepping, you said the term eyes on inventory.
Yes.
And I love that.
That's my shorthand. Yeah, eyes on inventory for the benefit of our customers, and that's why we're here.
Yep. So I did interview your founder, San Culp, got a few years ago now, but I also saw him at Manifest last year and I did a quick interview with him. Always a pleasure. But I'm really fascinated with what you guys are doing. It's a little different though. I think that people who are listening to my podcast, I don't think I've ever talked to somebody other than San Culp that's doing what you guys are doing. So what problem are you solving for your customers and who are your customers?
Our customers typically come to us for one of the classic problem. They're having a problem with their inventory accuracy. They're having a labor challenge, right? Keeping people around available to perform inventory counting, or they're dealing with demand, right? They just need to make do with the staff that they have. And what we do for them is we use a combination of cameras and our special sauce, our machine learning AI-driven special sauce, to interpret what we see. So we'll fly around in our drone case. We'll fly from bin to bin in a warehouse, up and down the aisles, take pictures. We'll pull out all the information we can from that image. Some people care about just making sure it's the right barcode. Some people want us to pull lot codes. Sometimes they want us to count the number of boxes, to tell us if they have loose shrink wrap, tell us if there's anything wrong. So we basically put eyes on anything that you want us to put eyes on. And we bring that data back, we run it through our processing, and we'll flag anything that we think is out of the ordinary. So we'll look at what your warehouse management system thinks is in the system, and we'll look at what we're finding in reality, and we'll tell you what we think is a little bit off.
Yep. And when you think about a warehouse, I'm not as knowledgeable as you, but I've been to a number of them. You receive a truckload of stuff, you put it all on the shelf, and hopefully it all got put in the exact right place. But that's not always easy. I've seen things are labeled, things are not in the quantities you expect. Sometimes it's the wrong size, so you have to break it down. Getting it all on the shelf correctly, super important, but not easy. And then you have to take it off the shelf and ship it, move it to the packing station and ship it. And sometimes there's people putting stuff back, maybe in the wrong place. So it's really easy for this to get out of kilter. This is not an academic exercise. It's a fast-moving environment. Inaccuracy is kind of part of it. And I think it's the fight that everybody who's running a warehouse has. And you guys are basically bringing a whole bunch of eyes on inventory to make that easier.
That's exactly right. We do three things. There are three things we do in a warehouse. We put stuff away, we take it out, and we make sure it's where we think it is. And we really focus on getting eyes on it in all of those steps, in the middle with our drone product, and then with cameras on material handling equipment, forklifts, and things like that at the point in which you're either putting it away or taking it out again.
Yep. Andrew, this is really simplistic, but one of the first times I visited a warehouse, it was a massive warehouse. And I remember I was with the owner and he showed me, said, Joe, this is what we do here. He says, we take things out of big boxes, we put them in little boxes, and then we ship. And he goes, it sounds simple. And I would say it is simple, not easy. Not easy. It's like all of our business and logistics.
That's right.
Anyway, Andrew, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the mothership that is Gather AI.
Sure. Yeah. I started out, I sometimes describe myself as bicoastal. I grew up for a little bit in the Bay Area until I was 11. My dad was in the semiconductor industry.
They used to do semiconductors out there.
Yeah, that's right. Back when that was really, the silicon was really
Silicon Valley
the big
shouldn't be
item.
called Silicon Valley because we don't do silicon out there anymore. Maybe in the future, though.
That's right. So we moved out east and I spent some time out there. I went to college at Cornell University in upstate New York. That's where I studied electrical engineering. And that's where I had my first taste of robotics and AI. So I had some exposure there. Really great professor I worked with. We ended up competing in this robotic soccer challenge. So imagine a ping pong table with little robots on it, the size of coffee cans. And we went to basically international competition and cleaned up the competition with our robots. And that was my first exposure. There, we had a simple camera over the robots, and we would capture a picture of the field, and we had our program basically would tell the robots where to move, what to do, pass the ball, kick it into the opponent's goal. And so that's where I really learned just how fun robotics and AI could be. After that, I graduated in 1999 and I went off to, it was the end of the .com or just before things were getting dicey.
Just before everything busted the first time.
That's right. And so I helped brick and mortar companies there really innovate, move some of their traditional technologies over into the digital space. Big companies, AOL, Time Warner, I think it was just Time Warner at the time, was digitizing their magazine production process, things like that. Then rode that up and then out through some of the fizzle. And then one day my old professor called me up, the one with the robots, and said, "Hey, we have this crazy idea. We want to run robots in warehouses to move inventory around." And that was the beginning of a company called Kiva Systems, which eventually became Amazon Robotics. So I was the first software engineer there. I was the principal for the production software stack by the time the dust settled on all of that. And that was another place again where we started to mold together AI and robotics and equipment and to get something really important done for our customers. So 2015, we were acquired in 2012. 2015, I moved to Colorado. My wife's from Colorado, so this was home for her. And another startup found me called Canvas Technology. And there we went after actually a manufacturing problem. Joe, some of your background in lean, you can appreciate what we were trying to do. We basically automated those Rubbermaid push carts you put in every janitor's closet or whatever. They're ubiquitous also in manufacturing for small parts movement. And so we built a fully autonomous point-to-point transportation push cart that would solve the transportation problem in small part manufacturing. That was acquired again, another company, that company was acquired by Amazon. So second exit to Amazon, and was bumming around again, working in the venture space a little bit with our investors in that company, Canvas Technology. They were kind enough to bring me in as a entrepreneur residence. So I ended up advising some of the investments, some of the companies we were working with. And that's when I fell in love with Gather. I started with Gather as an advisor for the first couple of years, and then they just sucked me into the vortex. And you mentioned Sandculp. Sandculp was really one of the main reasons I fell in love with the company. It's just a great culture. They have the same customer obsession that we had, I think, at Kiva that made us really successful. And we were solving real problems with technology that's ready to solve those problems.
Yeah. When I interviewed Sandculp a few years ago, I was really struck by, first off, some of his accomplishments prior to starting Gather. Very impressive and very smart guy, but also very personable. And I think, there's lots of people who are smart, but to build a company, you need a culture. And if you don't get somebody who's people oriented, you end up with a bad culture. And he went to Carnegie Mellon, right? And the company I know is based in Pittsburgh. I know you guys are spread out, probably get more spread out as the company grows, but I think people overlook some of those places like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and I live in the Detroit metro area. I like to think we're not overlooked as much because we have a lot of tech here because of automotive, but a lot of these places get overlooked and tons of talent come from those places. And I always say every time you're working with Silicon Valley people, they're not all from Silicon Valley. They're from India. They're from Ohio and St. Louis, all over the place. So anyway, great company. And so one more time, I want to talk about the challenges in warehouses. I know you guys solve a number of problems, but when somebody comes to you, what are they saying? What's going wrong when they finally return the call and say, okay, yes, come help me? What is the problem they're talking to you guys about?
Usually, yeah, so great question. They usually come in with one of a couple of problems. One is either the labor challenge, right? Whether it's not being able to find the right people or making the most of the people that you have. So they'll come on and say, look, we want to be better at cycle counting, right? We want to move faster. We want to get more done.
And for those who don't do it every day, what is cycle count?
So cycle counting so in warehouses, one of our main obligations is to just make sure things are still where we think they are. And so a lot of companies implement a program where they'll make sure that they go and visit every location every so often and make sure that what they think they have there is correct. So there's a natural drift that occurs. Something gets damaged, but nobody records it in the system. Something gets put in the wrong spot. So there's a natural degradation or attrition that occurs in the warehouse. So cycle counting is the process. It's a bottom line cost, right? It's money that you would otherwise not like to spend, but it's really important to the business because when that customer order comes in and you can't find the inventory or you find it and it's damaged or there's something's wrong, that really hurts. It hurts because you can't get that order out the door and it erodes customer trust. So we focus on coming in and first usually and working on that class of problem. What ends up happening, so they either come in for that on the labor side, or they come in and say, you know what, we specifically have an accuracy problem. We just can't count our inventory enough. And it's really important for it to be really high. And that's, again, another case. I'll talk a little bit about that. But when you make counting easier and less expensive, you end up doing it more. So you change the equation of how a warehouse works when you bring in a technology like this. What ends up happening then is customers end up seeing maybe their labor costs go down. Maybe they're having, again, better luck with retention because now they're working, instead of standing on a lift all day, they're punching go on a drone and then checking the results of the flight. So it's a little bit of a more enjoyable, rewarding role. And then on the other side of that, because we're flying more, our drones are typically about 15 times faster at going down an aisle than a person on a lift. And so
safer, obviously, too.
It's a lot safer, right? You cordon off the aisles and put the drone in, hit go, flies down the aisle and starts taking pictures. So it's a very safe operation.
I think you hit on this virtuous circle. And I think it's really important is that if you had a young person in your life, a friend who said, hey, I'm going to go work at a warehouse, you would say, go to a warehouse that has cool tech. And I think when you're in a warehouse that you have cool tech, you're like, cool, I am part of the future. I'm part of the supply chain world. I think if you're working in a area where there's no cool technology, then you're just a strong back walking around all day. And so I think you guys are brought in to solve the headcount problem. But I think there is again, a virtuous circle where you say it's easier to get headcount when you've got drones flying around. And by the way, it's not entertainment, but it is something that gives you a sense that, oh, okay, I'm going to be learning to use robots and drones and I'm going to have a career as opposed to drudgery.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, something I mentioned too, I think we were chatting before, they come in to solve that problem, but then they leave solving a bunch of other problems they didn't know that they had, or that became solvable by the fact that it was now cheaper to fly the drone. One use case that comes up a lot is OS&D. So you think that
define that for us.
Oh yeah, sorry. So when OS&D is overages, shortages, or damages. So when you move inventory in a warehouse and you take it back out again, three things can go wrong when that order exits the building. You can either have too much, you ship too much, you ship too little, or what you ship is broken.
And also receiving, same way. I can receive
That's
it.
right. When it comes into the building, you want to know if they gave you too much, too little, and or if what you received was all bent up, banged up, and you should maybe send it back or file a claim. And what happens is when you start taking pictures, we start to create for our customers a visual timeline for that inventory. So we keep the picture the drone takes, and then now you have some people talk about a digital twin. You have this digital twin that's really an inventory digital twin. It follows the timeline. Hey, we saw this over here, then it was over here. Oh, what do you know? We lost the box over in this spot. So you get that visual.
You have this real challenge in a warehouse, and you could be sitting in the office and say, I have my WMS, and I might even have a warehouse warehouse execution system, and boy, everything's looking great. And then I come in from out back and I say, hey, I can't find something. And you go, oh no, there's 20 of those. And I say, I can't find them. Or there's not 20, there's 16. And now we have to investigate. And so we always have reality, and then we have the warehouse management system that is hopefully very close to reality, but almost never exactly reality. And I think you guys bridge that gap for us, which is say, hey, we're going to make it a lot easier to identify all these discrepancies and fix them fast.
That's right. That's exactly right. The kind of the virtuous cycle is it gets easier to count. And because you have equipment doing it, you have this AI model that's computer vision, it's processing the images. It's an easy job. It gets it. We have really high accuracy rates, high 90 percentile rates on our reads. And even if we don't get it quite right, somebody can take a look at the picture and fix it. So it's this really streamlined process. And then what ends up happening is, one is we actually get better accuracy than the manual process, because you go up there, you're on a lift, you're hunched over, counting, scanning.
Not good human work.
Not good human work. And it's hard to get the number right. We get it wrong. Usually we just, if we can, we cheat and we just look and say, what does the system think we have in there?
Yeah. And I know this is not the primary thing you're there for. God forbid somebody, let's just say I work for a warehouse and I say, oh, I dropped something and I'm new here. And the last thing I want to do is just come into the boss and say, hey, I broke that electronic thing, the gizmo that we sell or that we distribute. I don't want to say anything. And if you have me doing inventory, I say, yeah, there's nobody broke any. So we have 17, just like you have in the WMS. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it can definitely happen. Humans do human things. and I don't want to get fired from the new jobs. I fibbed a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. It's our best intentions, but that's just everybody's making a judgment. And then the other thing too, we talked about this, is we're getting our accuracy up. We're helping our customers get their accuracy up between the digital representation and what's in their warehouse management system. And a lot of times we find that our customers, because of this discrepancy, they don't actually know how bad their inventory is. They have what their QA team is telling them, but we sometimes get a better measure really than a person can get. And these things have this ripple effect. I remember one customer, I think we got them from 98 to 99% inventory accuracy. And that cut 6 minutes off of the average order picking time, because they had all of these mispicks that were bloating the pick time, right? So their order time improved because their accuracy went up, right?
Yeah, and you think about, especially in an e-commerce type warehouse, if an order comes in by, I think it's usually 2:00, but I suspect it's going to move closer and closer to 3 or 4, and then say, if you get it 1 minute before 5, you still ship it by 5. Right now, I hear a lot of people say, if an order comes in by 2, I ship it that day. If I walk over to the bin and I don't find it, then I was like, oh, there should be in here. This looks like somebody put the wrong stuff back at this location. May I go tell the boss? I'm sure they have an approach or a process for that. But potentially, I don't ship that out that day. And now I have the end customer who wanted that same day, next day service. They're angry. My customer, who is the brand, they're angry. And you say, wait, why aren't my guys doing their job? The problem isn't in the pick. It's in what's on the shelves.
That's right. Sometimes I think about it as your process is running on the exception, not the rule. You're always fixing something. which we're amazing at in this industry. Logistics, this is an industry I love. I think I've been in the industry for at least over 20 years now. And I have so much respect for all the things that we do to meet customer promise, to meet the deadline, and the creativity required, because every warehouse is different and every problem is subtly different. And so exceptions are the rule often in warehouses. And the more we can get rid of the exceptions, the more everything.
Yep. So when I talked to Sandculp years ago, he said we have this drone that goes and does this inventory management. It's an inventory management tool. I think that's probably the wrong way to. You have a better term for it, but they were using a drone for it, and I thought, oh, very cool. I love it. When I talked to you the other day, you said, yeah, we started with a drone, but now we have that eyes on inventory, not just from drones, but from other stuff. What other tools are you using? I shouldn't tools. I don't know if that's the right term either. What other methodologies are you using to get eyes on inventory?
Yeah, so this is exciting for us. We just branched out. We announced at ProMat this year that we've released another product. It's called the Material Handling Equipment Vision product, MHE Vision for short. And what that is that's essentially a ride-along camera for your material handling equipment. So material handling equipment is anything typically with the fork tines on it. So you have pallet jacks, you have order pickers, which are they're like forklifts with a little cab on top and can go up and down and pick orders, high bay forklifts, lifts and things like that. So anytime you interact with a piece of inventory, we want to be there with a camera so we can do the same thing that we do on the drones, but in real time at the point of interaction. So what that does for us is a couple of amazing things. First of all, it drives the error detection to the point of the error, right? The point of the mistake. If it's unloading off the truck, if it's the wrong pallet, if we can't scan the pallet, we'll tell you. If we put it away, but we put it in the wrong spot, we'll tell you, hey, just so you know, this is off by 1. You want to leave it here? Okay, we're going to tell you WMS. So at least it's going to know when there's something wrong.
So this is catching the problems as they happen.
That's right. And then there's a funny other flywheel effect when we get this data. I mentioned before, we started with the drone. And what that did for us is it allowed us to get really good at taking distant, grainy pictures of a dark bin and figuring out exactly what was there. That was the enabler that let us take that same technology to the forklift. But then once we started doing that, what that really unlocked was also being able to apply a lot of the other kind of, you call them etiquette or evaluate secondary characteristics for what we're looking at. So was the pallet stacked properly? Is the wooden pallet broken? Is the lot code actually what we expected to see? When I do a quick case count, do we have the right number of cases relative to what we expected? What's the height of the pallet? In the bin that we put away, how much air did we waste? If we put it away, there's a certain amount of space that's air that we'd rather have inventory in if we were a efficiently operating warehouse. We call it cube utilization as a major factor. And so we can tell our customers, hey, just so you know, I took a raw measurement and this is physically how much air you have over all of the bins in this aisle.
You guys will continue to give us more and more context about our shipment as time goes on. And that's what we always expect. As the technology starts off one way and just keeps growing. And by the way, I just talked to somebody 2 weeks ago about humanoid robots. I suspect before long, your technology will be inside that robot or attached to the robot. And so we just have all that much more information. Fascinating. Anyway, I want to switch gears a little bit. So every other podcast, somebody says to me AI, and I've heard people say generative AI, I hear them say agentic AI. And I think I have some sense of it. I use AI every day for something or other. But what is AI? Why is it so important that we adopt it for use in our warehouses?
Sure. So I take a very broad definition to AI. So back in school, AI was not nearly as advanced as it was today. AI is really my definition of AI is anything that it starts to approach human-like behavior, right? And even just the invention of a barcode scanner is, to me, is a piece of AI technology, because what it's done is it's imbued a computer with the ability to differentiate between a bag of dog food and a can of Campbell's soup. So it's a very broad theme. What we're seeing today in AI is we're actually approaching, or probably surpassed now, a level where there's something called the Turing test. I don't know if any of your other guests have talked about this, but this is, I'm having a conversation with a computer. Can I tell it's a computer? And we're finally to that point where, with these large language models, so this broad space of AI, we've now got a new tool in the toolkit that is a large language model that is now has this flexibility in behavior that's so much like a human, you really can't tell the difference. And that's really changing how we work in the industry. So one way I like to think about where we are in the state of AI today and how that's different than the past is, back when I was building these AI tools, let's say in the Kiva case, we had these robots that were driving around and moving shelves so that people could pick items off the shelves. They had to make decisions based on some very simple rules. So we would program the robot. When you come up against another robot, do this, right? Run this algorithm. And something that is changing now is with these large language models, which are just a type of technology that exhibits this artificial intelligence behavior. They really have two key advantages over all the other stuff that we've tried in the past. First of all, they pass the Turing test. So you can talk to your AI like a human and it will understand you. And it understands at some depth, deeper than you try to talk to your Roomba, you're not going to get very far. And the other thing is that these AI models, they actually have a bit of randomness in them, and it's baked into how they work. So at the core of a large language model, it's looking at a string of words and it's trying to guess the next word that it should put out there. And it's actually a slightly random process. So you ask the same question twice to ChatGPT, you actually get subtly different answers. And that's by design. So the new flexibility that I think exists in warehouses today, in the technology available for logistics, is for something to try something over and over a couple times, but in subtly different ways. The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the outcome to be different. Now we actually have technology that maybe we'll try things in a couple different ways and communicate with us about our progress in these different ways. So that's the really exciting bit. And then there's the machine learning, the computer vision stuff that we do in augmentation with that I think is really exciting. So we're pushing the boundary in terms of what we can extract from pictures, and then combining it with that technology to say, hey, let's talk about your warehouse, and just doing some really exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating to see what's happening with the AI, and I use it a lot myself. And when what you just said, that it's always just trying to predict the next word. So when I start writing something, it is saying, it doesn't have the intelligence say that you do, I do, but it says, I can guess that word, the next word, as well as Joe or Andrew, and maybe better over time. But anyway, the secret sauce for you guys isn't necessarily the drone flying around or the camera on the forklift or wherever they're going to land those cameras. It's it's your AI. It's the computer vision.
Yeah, I like to differentiate. AI is this broad concept, and I think of computer vision it's a domain. It's, what can I do when I get a picture? What can I do with it? How can I use a machine to extract information from that image? And in some spaces, we're figuring out geometry. What are we looking at? And other ones, we're reading a barcode better than a human or even a traditional barcode reader could read. It's insane, actually, some of the stuff that we can do.
Yeah. Am I right to say that, we've had drones. We've had drones that we can fly around for a long time. The drones, if we were talking 5-7 years ago, maybe even a few years ago, you might have a drone, but you would be you would be driving it via remote control to go from bin to bin. And now you guys are able to teach it, which is a big upgrade because I've seen people with those remote controls of drones. It's always on the internet where it's like it's flying and all of a sudden up, I didn't turn it in time and now it's just flying. It no longer responds to my orders and it's going to crash 100 yards from here.
That's right. People are really good. People are actually very good pilots, but we're able to do better. So that's one thing. So I didn't cover that part of it, but part of our AI, part of our special sauce is flying that drone. Our operators, they've just pressed go and our drone will pop up. It'll take a picture, figure out where it is, and then fly from there. And what's really enabled this is the compute. So finally, we're getting iPads with really fancy GPUs built into them. We have drones that have these amazing chipsets on them, these microchips on them that are able to process visual information very quickly. And with that, what that's really unlocked is our ability to navigate a drone through a very tight space. Our minimum aisle width is getting down to sub 5 feet, which is pretty narrow. You have a drone, it's not many multiples more narrow than the aisle itself.
So is it sometimes dark in warehouses? Can it operate? So I've seen sometimes when you're walking through a warehouse, the lights come on as you walk through it. Does the drone turn the lights on or can it work without it?
Yes. That was one of the first things that we discovered right early on. The warehouses are dark. We like them to be dark when they're quiet. And so what we do is it's a simple problem. There's a simple solution that you just have to execute well. And that is we typically will put a spotlight on the drone. So it'll turn on that spotlight either all the time at a dim, or it will flash it pretty bright when we want to get a good picture. And then similarly, same with the forklift. You're in a dark truck, which is crank up the intensity. And there's other tech you can use. You can use infrared. We just use light.
So getting back to it, we talked about AI, and please give us a little lesson on machine learning also. So there's AI, then there's machine learning in context of managing my inventory. Please explain how that's going on.
Sure. Okay, this is great. So AI is this very broad bucket. Machine learning is like computer vision. Machine learning is a tool that we can use. And what machine learning is really learning by example. So having a machine learn by example. You put in example A and you expect output B, right? So it could be a picture of a cat. You expect the word cat to come out, or this little signal to pop high. And it's a very broad field. And it encompasses both computer vision. So you can use machine learning, this training by example model in the computer vision space. And that's what we do, for example, to get really good at reading barcodes. Or you give us a crazy, what we call them LPNs or license plates, LPs, or a pack out slip, or whatever's on the side of your pallet. Yeah, or your bin. And we want to pick out, okay, the lot code's here, and then we think this is a barcode, and then this is the handwritten version of the barcode, and then over here is the expiration date. And we pride ourselves on being able to fly our drone, take some pictures, and then train our system very quickly to say, oh, what you're looking at is a sticker that's laid out in this way, and these are the things we care about in it, right? Or, oh, you're looking at a bag of dog food. Let me help you count those bags of dog food. Versus, oh, you're looking at boxes. Let me count those boxes.
I know I asked you this before, so I know the answer, but I don't care. I'm going to ask it again. When my laptop is accusing me of being a robot, which is ironic, it says, hey, pick out the car in all of these pictures. And I always think, okay, here we go. Because I never get it on the first one. So there's just one little piece of a car and I click. And I think we've all gone through it, the CAPTCHA, right? And somebody told me years ago, but I was doing it, I feel like a decade, is, yeah, that's how we're training AI. So somebody's saying for these autonomous vehicles, we're going to use this as a car. So a million little pictures of cars. And by the way, you mentioned the cat just a moment ago. if you have a cat at your house, you have that context. So you might just see its tail coming out from under the door and you go, that's a cat. Now, if I don't have a cat, I go, what the hell is that over there? But getting back to it, from what I've learned about AI is it might identify a cat differently than you or I. Where if somebody said, Joe, Andrew, please explain how you know it's a cat. I'd say, they got the cute little eyes, whiskers, mouth, and these ears. And AI might say, nope, they fed me 700,000 views of a cat and I define it in this way. And it might be a geometry way. It might not be at all how we look at a cat.
That's right. I'm gonna use I guess a contentious quote. There's a Supreme Court justice that when he asked about obscenity or pornography, he says, I can't define it for you, but I know when I see it.
Exactly.
And that is exactly...
That's spoken like a parent right there.
Right? That is exactly what we're teaching these models to do. And that's why some people struggle to say, how do we know with 100% reliability that this machine learning model is doing the right thing? And the answer is we don't know. But we also don't know why humans can do the things that they can do. But the thing that we can do is train by example. And I want to tie in a cool example of how this ties into barcode reading and why machine learning is an unlock. So when you have a traditional barcode scanner, it's really a rule-based system, right? You scan a barcode, it shines a little light, and then it's looking where the dark spots are and the light spots, and it counts thick, thin, blank, thick, blank, and it's okay. That's this number. When you put a barcode into our system, if you've got a big X through the barcode, it can still figure out how to read around the X. So I got enough information, or glare, or shrink wrap.
Yeah, it only gets smarter, right? I mean, it's
Exactly.
continuing gathering more data. So if there's a bin that has an edge broken off, it goes, okay, we've seen broken bins before. We get it. It's still a bin.
Exactly. It's figured out something it's close enough. And the same thing, the example, the cat tail sticking into the around the corner, that's a cat, but you can't really explain why. It seems like a special case. And what the machine learning approach does is, in this very odd way, it's very elegantly able to figure out the special cases.
If I could just say about how humans look at things. So when you walk into a room, your mind doesn't quickly see everything in that room. Your mind almost imagines what it should be and thinks this is what it should be. And if you've been in that room many times, or let's just say you go into a public bathroom, I know what a public bathroom is. I've been into a million. So I walk into one, my mind is filling in the blanks. So when we talk about AI not doing this, that, or the other thing, our minds have evolved to do some of the same thing, which is imagining what it should be. which is wild to think about all by itself.
It is amazing. We are amazing. I think that's the one thing I think AI, these large language models, give us an appreciation of, is just how amazing we are. And the compute is chasing us, but we're still pretty amazing, the things that we can do.
Well, yes. And we're evolving to sitting on the couch, scrolling through social media. As we evolve to those type of beings, we'll let AI take over. So I want to talk about a case study that you guys did. And I wrote it down, Stadium Goods. Talk about the case study that you guys did with Stadium Goods. First off, what was the problem they were experiencing? What did you guys do for them?
Sure. So Stadium Goods, they're one of the best examples of why how amazing this technology is and what it can do for a business. So Stadium Goods is effectively an online consignment business. So you have a pair of 1995 Air Jordans signed by Michael Jordan himself, and you want to make that available on the internet, right? You want to have that item shipped out, but you don't want to, as a seller, you don't want to go through the business of having to keep it in the back room, and when somebody hits buy, go and find it and really quickly wrap it up and ship it out. So Stadium Goods helps companies create a marketplace for these products.
It sounds like a lot of unique goods too.
So this is the challenge. So their warehouse, they work with a company called Bear Distribution Centers that we work with, that is an expert in, they call them as a third-party logistics company. So they They handle the logistics problem for Stadium Goods.
Pick, pack, ship.
Exactly. And it's e-commerce. So their responsibility is to, when somebody clicks buy, we got to make sure we get that exact pair of shoes in a box and out the door, as quickly as we all expect in today's modern era of e-commerce. And so Stadium Goods is a great example. They have thousands and thousands of unique SKUs. So every item in their warehouse is unique. And so what this presents is they had something like a 2% shrink rate. So shrink is a term for you go to find something and it's not there, right? It's like somehow it's evaporated in the building. And for the purposes, it might be one bin over, it might be one aisle
Could be
over.
misplaced or stolen. There's a lot of things it could be, but it's gone.
It's gone. And for the purposes of that transaction, that is the nightmare scenario, right? You can't, a customer has expressed a desire for that item and you can't fulfill it. So they brought in our drone, and again, they were going after labor savings, right? So they saw immediately something like a 200K savings per year in labor, just in terms of scanning based on current rates.
So just that doing the inventory count, that's the first chunk of $200,000 is a lot of money, obviously. Now, is that, how many drones do they get? Is that one drone or a dozen drones? How many drones do you get for a use case like that?
I could be wrong on this. It all depends on the square footage. So the way that we do this is we look at the rate that they need to fly and the frequency with which they want to fly. And so the way that we spec our systems out is either 1, 2, or 3 drones per facility. I think they might be a 1 or a 2. What they ended up doing was bringing in our drone, flying it up and down the aisles. That got their inventory rate was already quite good, 98, 99%. So you have this 2% shrink. So 1 in 50 people order something, and what do you know? You're potentially having a problem there. I think last measure, we were at 99.95% accuracy. So we got them just to a new level of confidence while saving them money. And so that's just like a classic example where you change the cost.
Doing that inventory count a lot more too. So it's not just it's more accurate, it's doing it more often. And I'm assuming it doesn't cost a lot more or anything to do it twice a day as opposed to once a week.
That's right. It's basically you pay for your subscription and you can fly the drone. It's about customers see all in, they see anywhere between 7-10 times faster than having a human get out, all labor involved, getting out there, even checking the occasional image to see if we were right or there's one we can't figure out. So that shifts the equation. And then I mentioned there's that compound effect where one is we're just very good at reading barcodes and reading handwritten notes and anything you can find there, better than a human or a physical barcode scanner sometimes. And then you're flying more, so you're scanning more. So your numbers they get high and they stay high.
That's wonderful. Now, I'm assuming there's secondary improvements that happen after beyond just the accuracy piece. What else comes with that?
Oh yeah.
I'm assuming your I don't even know how they measure it, but it's basically, I know everybody's measuring, we got this many orders by 2:00, what percent went out? And I want to be able to say 100%. And I'm assuming that rate went up along with more accurate inventory.
That's exactly right. Like if you're in the industry, you know the cut time for the truck, right? You've got to meet the cut time for the truck leaving. And, the thing that we end up doing is just driving certainty that when we go down the aisle to get the item, it's there. Or ideally, we actually take errors out of the whole process. If you know that it's missing, maybe you don't list it on the website. If you adjust your balance on hand, right? And I mentioned this OS&D problem, right? That can exist throughout the supply chain, right? That could be,
it's everywhere.
I think I just got 100 in and I just put away the pallet, but it's actually 93. And if you only keep 3 days of inventory on hand, right? That could be critical.
Well, if you go to a truck terminal, a lot of times there'll be like in the terminal an area that just said OS&D, and it's the land of misfit toys. It's broken stuff. It's packages that are open, and you go, oh, somebody's sweater is sitting over here. It's when you're moving freight, that's the nature of what happens. But if we can reduce it, especially if we can reduce it by using technology, because one of the things we're supposed to do is when I receive a truckload of something, if something was damaged in transit, I'm supposed to identify that within a certain amount of time. Sometimes I don't take it out of the box yet, so I didn't notice it was broken. I think as we get better and better with technology on basically inspecting that stuff with our drones. And by the way, if you free people up from doing inventory, you can say, I can put the humans on opening these things up and doing a quick inspection. But before long, I think I'll be using the drones for that too, or the forklift or whatever else you guys are starting to use.
Yeah, there's something magical here. You reminded me that we're amazing. The people are amazing. We can do all sorts of crazy things. We're not good at repetition. We're not good at
Well,
boring.
not everybody, so just some of us.
Yeah, most of us. I think as a species, we're pretty amazing. But so the thing that's really funny is that when you bring in AI, you bring in machine learning, you bring in computer vision, what you're doing is you're also bringing in, our whole industry has been elevated by bringing in the technology that makes the rote tasks just happen in the background. So big focus for us. Hey, you move that pallet off of the truck and you put it in induct. We get a picture of that. We can flag that for damages without somebody having to remember, oh, check for damages, check for damages. So we can take those memo items, those memory items, those checklist items, and we can just run them all day long using the combination of computer vision and then AI, reporting, drive workflows. There's a concept of agents, and that's just like your buddies and your AI buddies in the warehouse that are writing you about things.
Yeah. So I hear this all the time. So generative AI is what a lot of us use. I use Google Gemini. So I might be writing an email or an article or whatever, and I copy paste in there, and sometimes I use it for titles. But when they say agentic AI or agent, what do they mean by that? How is that different than like generative AI in the context we're talking about here today?
Yeah. So I'll bring you back to this is a common term in AI and in automation, artificial intelligence in general. An agent is anything that has agency, because that's a poor definition. But what it means is things that can act on their own. And in the case of the Kiva robots, the Amazon robots, the robots themselves have agency. They can do things. They can move shelves around. While people are over here doing this, the robots are doing that. And when we talk about agentic AI, we talk about AI, typically these large language models that are able to exercise their own routines in the background and make decisions based on those routines.
So would one of those be like updating the warehouse management system with the latest information?
Yeah, or 5 o'clock rolls around. We're going to look, maybe it's Tuesday, 5 o'clock. We want to know, all our orders are out. What's our cube utilization? Where should we move anything around? Or what do our orders look like tomorrow? And should we make any preparatory moves? We have the concept of AI, which can do this magical thing, which is bridge human understanding to machine type things like running a database query. And it has, again, that feature of randomness, so it can try a couple different ways. We now have a very powerful agent. If we give it the ability to go off and solve a problem for us that's bounded, understood well enough, defined enough, now we can start to trust these models to be more agentic. So we don't sit there, we don't have to say, do this. We can trust them to run on a script.
I just bought some airline tickets, and I remember I read like a week or so ago, before long, you'll have an agent that books out. So I think I'm going to 5 conferences between now and the end of the year. I got to get airline tickets for 4 of them and hotel rooms. And it'd be really nice if you could say, yes, I have an agent that says, I know how Joe likes to travel, and we're gonna check his email, what conferences he's going to be at, and then use his credit card and do all these things. It's a little scary, but I think once you've done it, and it's almost like the internet when somebody said, oh yeah, I'm going to buy something on the internet. I'm going to put my credit card in the internet. Are you kidding me? They're going to steal my life. And it's worked out fairly well for us.
That's right. That's a great analogy. Yeah, that's exactly what's coming for us, I think.
Yep. So unwrap this bad boy up. So I'm talking to my friend Andrew Hoffman from Gather AI, and we're talking about AI literacy in logistics, and we're really talking about the warehouse. So I'm going to summarize the best I can, then I'm going to get your final thoughts on the topic. There's all sorts of challenges running a warehouse efficiently and effectively. It's always been a challenge. It's difficult work, and it gets even worse if you can't be accurate in where your inventory is. So if stuff gets put back in the wrong place, which by the way, these are also moving at rapid speed. So it's real easy for somebody to misbin something. It's really easy when you say, "Hey, we have to get these trucks unloaded and all this content put onto all this inventory put on the shelves." We're running fast. And so that inaccuracy though in the inventory is going to mean I'm not going to be as effective and as efficient as I need to be getting it out the door. When I get that order at 2:30, it's got to go out today. And I can't do it if my inventory is not really accurate. And I, this is a, this is, there's a lot of tails to this problem, but if you can't get the first piece right, the foundational piece of getting the inventory accurate, the rest of it doesn't work very well. Headcount is also a big problem. We have fewer and fewer young people who want to work in warehousing, and it's a growing space. So how do we entice people to go work in these warehouses? One good way is to bring technology, but if you can't entice a whole bunch of people to come in, we're going to say we have the ability to use tools like Gather AI to do some of the job that is not necessarily the best fit for humans. We don't want our employees going on a big lift 40 feet in the air to count bins. We're not particularly good at it either. It gets monotonous. We get bored. We're listening to music. We're doing whatever we're doing, and we lose count. And so even when we're doing the cycle count, the inventory count, we're not very good at it. All sorts of challenges. We mentioned OS&D. It's so important that we, in the warehousing space, the best players are starting to utilize this. So if you're going to stay ahead of the game, and by the way, the game is same day, next day. So the customer expectations that we all have is that I'm going to get same day, next day. That's what we expect. And if we can't get this warehouse to run really efficiently, really effectively, we can't manage same day, next day. We also talked about computer vision. That's the secret sauce for you guys, is the computer vision and the AI. So when I talked to Sandculp before, it was just drones, but now it's anywhere where you can put your AI and your computer vision. That's the secret sauce. And I think before long, it's going to be in robots. I suspect you guys are looking at every place in the warehouse where we can put this, and we're going to just make life a lot easier for the people who are managing warehouses, and including forklifts and any other material handling things. We also talked about stadium goods. Again, the challenge is a whole bunch of unique inventory, and the customer expectations are just sky high. You do not want to disappoint somebody who wants to buy from you, because you might not get them back, especially with the e-commerce business. Anyway, enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one, Andrew Hoffman.
Sure. One question I think I'll throw in there that I think a lot of people are asking is how to get started with AI in general. What should my relationship be? Like, how do I test the water? So I think we've always faced this in our industry, right? With the broad definition of AI that we discussed today, the water level is always increasing. And whether it's new barcode scanning tech or now these latest LLM models, computer vision, where there's always some new technology to try. I'd say if you are your policymaker for your organization, find some technology that you trust, large language models, things like that, and create a bit of a playground, a safe playground for your company to start using these tools. Pick problems, they're real pain problems, and expect to maybe whiff on it the first time, but know that try it 3 different ways or try it a couple different ways and learn about the technology. So lean in on that. It's the same approach we use in developing these technologies, which is you find something where that cost benefit is there, and then you lean in and you discover all of these other things, and you find nirvana from that exploration.
Andrew, we didn't touch on ROI on this, and I know it's going to be different for every situation, but give us a sense for ROI. And also, you touched on implementation. If somebody's listening today and they say, this sounds great, what does it look like? If I reach out and I talk to Andrew or someone else from Gather AI, how long till we're actually seeing results?
Oh yeah. For us, it's easy. It's typically months. And that's with it. We have a kind of an installation process because we do put tags up in your bays so that at least for the drone and also the forklift, hey, just saw that sticker. I know where I am.
It's the guardrails for them.
The guardrails. Exactly. That's really important. Yeah. If we don't see a sticker, we don't want to keep going. We want to know with confidence where we are. And so we typically see one example, 8-month ROI, like it's usually measured in months for companies. And then that's not counting all of the other side effects. That's usually just a mixture of labor and potentially a little bit of improvement in accuracy. But then we don't talk about cube utilization. We don't talk about some of these other pile-on effects, top-end effects sometimes of just being having higher quality and your customers trusting you more. Like there's all these ripple effects.
We want to get to the place where our warehouse management system matches the reality of our warehouse. And some people would call that digital twin, whatever you want to call that. But you can't do simulations. You can't do advanced planning if my warehouse management system doesn't match what's going on in my warehouse. And given the nature of how fast we're moving in those warehouses, it's really hard to keep everything in the right place, I should say. And I've toured those warehouses. It's not easy. And I can't imagine it's easy to keep headcount in some of those. So if I have turnover and I say, oh yeah, Andrew and Joe are brand new here, but here's the high expectations we gave them. Not good. And this is the nice thing about working with Gather AI. None of your cool eyes on inventory tools ever quit or take the day off or break up with their boyfriend. They every day show up and do their job and they get better every day.
It's true. I like to think the best technology is there for you. Like you said, first day on the job, maybe you're nervous about reporting something. We just take that concern away, right? And we just figure it out.
I love it. So what conferences will we, by the way, I didn't say this already, but I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, any other links you and the go-to-market team give me, I'll put in the show notes. Ideally, you guys have maybe some videos of your drones flying around. I've seen you guys at Manifest the last 2 years with your drones flying around. It's very impressive. But if you have a video, I'd love to get that and put that in the show notes so people can check it out. Anyway, what conferences will we see you and the fine folks from Gather AI at in the future?
Sure. So the one I think that's the closest coming up on the calendar, I think the Gartner Supply Chain Planning Summit, which is actually going to be out here in Colorado in December.
Nice.
And then I think the other next big one on our radar is Manifest in Vegas in February.
I will see you guys there.
Those are the big ones.
Oh, and I also have this New York Venture Summit.
Yeah, we'll be there. That's actually next week. If you get this podcast out before then, we'll be out at the New York Venture Summit there as well. So for those on the investment side, we'll be out there.
Excellent. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. I think this is the future. Everyone talks about AI, but it's how we're deploying it is so impressive. And it's not about the drone. It's not about the warehouse. It is about the computer vision and the AI and your machine learning. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe.
And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.